Welcome to Raging Bullets, a DC Comics fan podcast, episode 605. Welcome to Raging Bullets. I'm Sean Whalen, drnorge. I'm joined as always by my co-host Jim, the sensei of the whatnot, the Duke of the Sultan of Strategery, the indestructible, bridge-defying. There are times when Sean goes on and on like he's Kate Spencer to my Detective Bones. So says the elder statesman of the podcast, Segulin.
How's it going, eh?
On this episode, we're going to be talking about Checkmate issue number 3, and we're going to talk about Detective Comics number 1042. We are sponsored, as always, by DCB Service and InStockTrades.com. Jim, what is going on over at DCBService.com?
We've talked a lot about the different stuff DCBS. And yes, they give you great deals on comic books, but there's also some cool deals out there on toys and models and T-shirts. Oh my, multiple different stuff. Check out the collections, different action figures with the specialty ones. You've got your straightforward action figures. It's like I'm going through. I have multiple pages worth to go through. So thank you, DCBS.
Over at InStockTrades.com, I'm a big fan of compendiums and deluxe editions for series because it's nice to have large collections of issues, especially of books like Fables. Fables is one of my favorite books of all time. I'm actually right now reading the deluxe edition, volume 1, from the beginning, going through and enjoying that whole story, because that Batman crossover that's coming up has just got me jonesing to read Fables. So I'm enjoying gradually making my way through Fables again. They've got the Fables Compendium trade paperback volume 3. This is great for people who haven't read it before, because these compendiums, it's 1,096 pages. It's a $59.99 book regularly. 42% off, only $34.79. This one collects Fables 83 to 113. The original graphic novel, Fables Werewolves of the Heartland, which is amazing. The Great Fables crossover chapters from Jack of Fables 33 to 35, and the Literals 1 to 3, which were part of that crossover as well. So if you didn't read Fables before, these compendiums are the way to do it, because everything's embedded into the compendiums. Highly recommend these if you haven't been doing it. Fables Compendium 3 is out now. $34.79 to grab that. 1,000 pages of content? That's insane. So I want to thank DCB Service and InStockTrades.com for continuing to support the show. Jim, what kind of a podcast are we?
Raging Bullets is a spoiler podcast. We go in-depth into plot line, story twists, and whatnot of the comics we're discussing on today's show. So if you haven't read the books, you may want to come back later so you can better enjoy the show.
Let's talk some comics.
Our first discussion is on Checkmate number 3. The writer is Brian Michael Bendis. Art and cover by Alex Malev, with colors by Dave Stewart. Josh Reed on letters. Matt Taylor on variant cover. Jessica Chen is editor. Ben Abernathy is group editor. And Checkmate was created by Paul Kuchenberg and Steve Irwin.
So that's going back to the original Checkmate. You and I were fans of the Greg Rucka revival of Checkmate. And then just the concept from there, that was like my first real exposure to Checkmate as an ongoing series. When they announced this, I was hoping it was an ongoing. Don't get me wrong, I'm thrilled with what we've got. I love this miniseries quite a bit. But the greedy part of me loves this kind of espionage kind of content from DC. And Bendis is doing just such a terrific job with this. I'm hoping this leads to, because it's kind of like Event Leviathan, right? Which was like a mini series, and then this obviously spins out of being a sequel of sorts to that. We didn't really get a chance to talk much about Event Leviathan on the show. So I'm glad kind of through Checkmate we're getting to talk about just that whole concept of how Leviathan evolved from being Talia's thing to now Mark Shaw's thing, the former Manhunter. And now this group of Checkmate is really putting themselves in the way of, I think, a real contemporary concept of what happens if, basically all of our espionage groups, all of our internal agencies get hacked and get taken over. All their technology starts going under one banner. What do you do when the only remaining source seems to be their target, and you've got to protect it. And I love that this series is about this unlikely band. I love the makeup. We've got the Manhunter. We got the female Manhunter. We've got the King, who we don't really know who he is yet. The Colonel, Steve Trevor. Bones, Director Bones. Green Arrow, The Question. Lois Lane, Talia. And he's not announced as part of the team, but boy, is Damian Wayne well written in this. Because I hope he's an ongoing cast member in this, and I hope this leads to it being another miniseries, another ongoing or something, because, we're halfway through now with issue number 3, and this feels different. I'm digging this. I missed this concept of espionage in the DC universe. This is my jam. And I love the art. I love the creative team. This has got what I want from this style of book. I can't imagine, maybe for different reasons, I know you've got to be digging this because you and I are very much in sync when it comes to the. I'll be shocked if we're not both digging this.
No, I'll tell you, I was getting ready to do one of my, I don't really like a thing, and I knew there's no way you'd buy that.
No.
But no, I'll tell you, I've been digging this. And here's the thing, I look at this as you had the Leviathan miniseries, you had the Lois Lane miniseries, now you have this miniseries. I see these all as being connected in one giant story. So while we're not getting an ongoing, if you read all those different miniseries, you do get an ongoing story.
Yep.
And you do get something that's in the same groove and that same kind of universe. And I think that's one of the things I've been loving for this. So, yes, like you, I want an ongoing Checkmate. But, again, if they don't decide to do something like that, give me another miniseries that's keeping this universe alive, and keeping these kind of stories. Because the espionage stories inside a superhero universe can be really neat if you've got the right people running them. And so far, all these stories that I mentioned have had the correct creative team. And it's not just writers, it's your art teams as well. You've got to have the right look for this kind of story. So this is one of those where we've got a beautiful story that's unfolding, but we also have a beautiful artwork that so fits the spy, grit, espionage, kind of underworld sort of look at the superhero universe. And especially love the usage, as you said, of Damian, as he's a knight, he's a rook, in this, in the Checkmate team. 100% he's running that role. And he I don't know if he's officially named, but he is. Come on, it's Damian. You want to have him on a team, especially if you've got Talia. Damian and Talia, they're a great, they're a great team because they each know the level of skills each other has, but two, they're a good check and balance. Damian is a really good check and balance for Talia, and he understands he knows she's going to double cross them flat out. He knows she's going to double cross him, so he's ready for it. Whereas the others may get surprised by it, Damian won't. So I think that for me is why I love him. Well, one, I love the little monster, but he is just so perfect on this team. And I especially loved Superman's usage in this so far.
Oh, yeah.
This has been really cool because, one, the secret's out there, but two, just him and Lois Lane. It's always been, you don't mess with Lois Lane because the big blue Boy Scouts looking out for her. Well, now everybody knows you don't mess with Lois Lane because that's his wife, So I really like just how it goes up a whole nother level. And that was some cool stuff that happened in the Lois Lane miniseries whenever she was in danger and whenever she was, in spotlight and just, Soup being right there and everyone knowing Soup is right there. We've had in various Superman stories, you've had it where there's the buzzwords you don't say because he'll hear you, and kill Lois Lane are two things you never say out loud. Well, I really do like how, Leviathan is handling the Lois Lane situation. I think it's absolutely perfect.
I agree with you on Superman's usage in this because what I really loved about this story with regards to Superman was Even when they were like calling Leviathan out on like, you're supposed to be a generational thing, you being like this Superman fanboy. But you get this idea of in a world where you're growing up with Superman being a part of it, that you would be drawn to him. And if you really believe that he's good and you believe that what you're doing inherently is good, because that's the interesting part about this. Shaw believes he's doing good in what he's doing. He believes he's building a better world. He wants Superman to get it. He wants him to understand. And he's really driven for that to be a thing. I love that because I could see why. Out of all the heroes, right? Superman would be the one where you're like, if you really believe intrinsically that what you're doing, so you want the nod from Supes, right? So yep. I get this, and it really makes a lot of sense from a storytelling standpoint. It's a different usage for Superman, yet feels so Superman. Also, I love this idea that this isn't something that Superman comes in and punches. It's Superman's role in this is very different, where he's coming in as a man of principle. They respect his power. They are naturally concerned about his power and what he can do. But the idea that they've got these bases that Superman can't see into. They know how to kind of counter that using technology. It's an interesting sort of world where you see that. I love this kind of interplay between them, and it made for a very interesting storytelling that I think has grown beyond it being a Superman event into what you're talking about. I loved your point, and I think it's well met. We had Event Leviathan, then we had the Lois Lane mini, now we have this, and this has evolved beyond what it originally was, and I like the evolution of it, and I'm with you. I want more of this, and I think that's where I was going, and I like the way you framed it up. I don't care what that looks like, I just want to see this continue, because 3 issues into this, I'm like, well, I don't want just 3 more. I want, I'm greedy. I'm greedy. When I'm enjoying something, you want to know that you're going to get more content. If this is the wrap-up of it, if it winds up at issue 6, this kind of closes this chapter. I just want a satisfying ending. I know Bendis will give us that. I'm enjoying this so much, though, that I would love, even if it's not Leviathan-focused, if there's another mini with these characters, because I love this mishmash of characters. That's, I think, the thing that I'm really digging about this Checkmate minis. They put together some characters we don't normally get to see working together. That was something cool about Checkmate, too. Checkmate, as a series, had a very unique cast. Some of them were even villains that were placed in that role. Do you have any guesses who you think the king is? I don't.
No, I have no idea. And that's, I think, one of the things, part of it is, I think he's somebody who has a history with Checkmate. I think that's going to be, revealed. But I'll be honest, I have no idea. And I think that's one of the things I'm loving about this series is I don't know what's going to happen next. I don't see where things are going. Even some of the stuff I'm like, okay, I still 100% got Swerve. And, the whole Talia, everything, she breaks into Markovia, kills a bunch of people, Soup comes in, does the Superman thing, takes her back to prison. Okay, I was thinking, that's about where it's going to end. Then at the end of the issue, we get that whole Swerve that was all a setup. That was all Shaw set up. He wanted her to come in. He wanted her to kill those people because those were people he didn't trust. So, but now not only, did he get rid of his rats, but now Checkmate 100% trusts her. Or 100% in quotes because they don't really trust even Damien, who even her son doesn't 100% trust her, but they're going to trust her with the important stuff. They're going to put her on the missions. I thought that for me was a beautiful Swerve that, I'll be honest, I didn't see that coming. No. I honestly didn't think that she was working with Shaw to, weed out his problems, but also get in good with Checkmate. I was thinking probably getting good with Checkmate, but I wasn't 100% thinking, that she was in conjunction with Leviathan. I think that for me was a beautiful Swerve. It's swerves like that really make me enjoy the story. And thinking just giant swerves, I'm like, with the king, I don't know. I'm trying to think of the biggest name that the Swerve could be, and figuring it's the skies or something like that. The only name that pops in my head, and it's a ridiculous name, and I will tell you, I don't think it is, but what if it's Ra's al Ghul? Or what if it's one of Al Ghul's people, or something like that? What if it's League of Assassins?
I don't know. I'm finding, I don't think it's Ra's, but I could see your other point about it being somebody associated. I kind of, it's strange. Normally I'm like, I'm running to figure it out. I'm doing like internet searches to see if anybody's got anything. This is an interesting series in the fact that I was nodding when you were saying this about how you like the mystery. You like the unfolding. I'm enjoying that too. So I kind of just want to keep enjoying that part of the miniseries. Like, I don't need to know right now. Strangely. Like, I'm usually the one that, like, oh, I want to know. I want to know before they tell me. I want to see what people are out there throwing out there, and I want to see how that, gets my brain going. I don't with this, which is really unusual for me. And I do think it's a testament to what I'm digging about the series. The Talia reveal was one where what I'm anxious to find out through the storytelling is why. Why, Talia, are you siding with them? What is it you're hoping to achieve? And is she really siding with them, or is this a power play? What is Talia's real motivation here? Talia is such an interesting and complex character because I grew up loving Talia as this person who was devoted to her father, but yet deep down at her core was caring and good and really loved Batman. We would see her just show this level of goodness as she was trying to, I think in some ways, understand Bruce, impress Bruce, but yet I did feel that there was a really good person in there. Talia now is an opportunist, and I would be interested to see if she's drinking the Kool-Aid and she really feels that what Shaw's doing is a good thing, or if she's trying to regain power. I don't know what her motivations are here. I'm intrigued by it. Like, I don't need to know. That's when I think one of the true triumphs of this story is. I'm enjoying it. Just keep this ride going for me, and I'm happy to see what happens next issue and go from there. My only bummer on this is there's 3 more issues. Only 3 more. Only 3 more issues.
Only 3 more, yeah.
but at the halfway point, boy, has this been paced really well. I love the writing of all the characters. I thought that they put an interesting dynamic in. I'm a big fan of Vic Sage. I love the Question. I like having him there and his interplay with Green Arrow. You don't get to see a lot of that. And I think the two of them are just great together, and I really enjoy those moments. Lois Lane, if we want to talk about handling in this, Lois Lane is extremely well handled in this. I like that it's not everything is about calling Superman. It's about Lois does her own investigations, and she's a lot of times got to, and you get why as a reporter. If you're always calling Superman, at what point in time are you losing your own objectivity to a situation? You got to go in. You got to do your own investigation. You got to process, analyze, put the clues together, come up with, your own conclusions. And if you're always reaching out to Clark, when do you ever process that? When do you get to that point? Her way of operating makes a ton of sense. Makes her a really strong and unique character. And you get why he loves her. Because of the fact that she is such a unique character and such a unique commodity. I really think her writing in this is top notch. This is a great series for her as well. That's another reason why I want to see more of this. I want to see this cast. I want to see this Checkmate team continue on.
Yes.
So when I say that, I want a Checkmate ongoing, it's not that I don't want continuing, more mini-series, and I'm fine if the next mini-series focuses elsewhere, but I'm hoping that we get, a Checkmate 2 or, something like that down the road where it makes sense in the story or for storytelling, because this is a cool team. So different than, it's what I like about Justice League Dark, right? Justice League Dark, even though it's got the Justice League moniker on it, is clearly a very, very different team and a very, very different concept than the Justice League itself. This Checkmate there's not another team in the DC universe that is like this group. Not with this kind of makeup. I love that we've got some standard humans like Steve Trevor and things like that who are there because they provide a unique skill set. We've got Bones, whatever the heck he is, on this team. And I love him. I love Detective Bones. And I love that everyone just kind of at this point is, when it comes to Detective Bones, it's just, Yeah, this talking skeleton has been running this organization for years, and we're all just okay with that. Like, that's the DC universe.
Yeah, this is normal.
Yeah. Again, this is a world where we've got a talking tree, in Swamp Thing that is, we also take as commonplace as well. So I love this quirky team concept. And again, this is Bendis at his best. It's very, very cool.
Well, and it's a beautiful blend of comedy and the action and intrigue.
Yeah.
I love with the question and Arrow, where they're talking about when he's calling in saying Question's been shot. You shot him? Like, no, it was Merlin. And as this is going on, Question's like, how do you not know the proper way to take this arrow out? I love just that little bit between them, a little chuckle right there in the middle of all this stuff. Didn't take away from anything, but added to the story. Just it's those little banter moments that it's a fine dance and a fine balance. It's kind of like you mentioned it earlier when they had that whole Superman conversation where it's a generational thing. That whole conversation there, kind of made me chuckle, but it was a nice, really cool story usage. And even the beginning of this issue, you had when Shaw is sitting there saying, "You don't get it. We just won. We just introduced this concept of Superman, and he's thinking about it." And I love the fact that this is how you play Superman, and even I want to say play, but he's not really, because I loved how Guardian said Shaw's not trying to Luthor you, Superman. He's trying to save you. He's not throwing up a smoke screen, making it look like he's a good guy when he's really the bad guy. He's actually the good guy. And I love just how that distinction and that usage, and just, again, this is the dialogue that this story is crafting that really is a cool, it shows, the intelligence of these people. These aren't just punch people in the face, kind of win the day. This is a mind game. This is, a war of intellect. And I think that's where it can be very difficult to craft a comic like that, because you don't have Superman punching a big robot. You need something to keep it going, and that's what they're doing with this. And I think that's one of the things that I'm enjoying the most about this. The fact that, there's some cool action sequences when Talia was just trashing people. That was awesome. But that wasn't the main focus of that story. Not the main focus of this one. There's no fighting at all in this entire issue. Yet it was still a very moving, very, really cool story.
It's a gorgeous issue. I really love the artwork in this. Like, it's my art read through, kind of going through and just really delving into this art. I love the tone, the styling. This is like the perfect art team for this style of book. And it's really, really sharp. It's the kind of stuff that I loved about Gotham Central when at the highest quality of that artwork. You get the same thing here with this. I'm not saying it's a cookie cutter version of that. What I mean is just tone, atmosphere, mood. I really, really love the look of this book. And that was something that was really something that connected to me the same way the dialogue does. I love when great teams are put together. One of my favorite dialogue sequences, I talked about Detective Bones before. It was Kate's sequence where Bones and Steve Trevor are sitting across from each other, and they're not saying anything. So she leans down. Did you notice she's only talking to Steve? Like, yo, Steve, are you two having a telepathic conversation without me? And he's like, I don't have powers, Spencer. It's just, that's happened to me before. And Bones is talking. He's like, no, we are carefully considering our next move. Every time she reaches down to talk, she's only talking to Steve. It's so interesting to see just that it sets a tone. It sets an atmosphere there. I don't think it's not necessarily 100% talk to the hand of Bones, but you definitely see she's much more comfortable getting answers from Steve Trevor. And I really liked seeing that it adds a dynamic that felt real. That's a reality thing that would happen in a group, in a mishmash group like this.
Well, I'm reading that as she 100% does not trust anything that comes out of Bones' mouth.
Correct.
How do you know Bones is lying? Because his lips are moving, or his jawline's moving because he doesn't have lips. But Trevor, on the other hand, he's a guy that, because of who he is, his honor, his integrity, and just his general whatnot, he's going to have to lie to you because he is a spy, but you got a better chance of getting an honest answer from him. Plus the history between Bones and Manhunter, she really hates him, so I like the fact that they didn't drop any of that. They kept that going through. It's kind of like the Damien and Talia dynamic. You got to keep that going. This is a really cool. Each of these individuals have their own connection with each other.
That's where a lot of times, people always go, well, continuity doesn't matter. Here's where it does. When you get moments like that, you don't need to have read every story to give you that, right? And it may be that a reader comes in with a different background. Everyone's got different backgrounds on these characters. This may be, for some people, their first story, their first foray into this. And yet, kind of by the end of these 3 issues, where everyone stands. You've been able to kind of feel that out. And if you're interested, you can go back and read so much of those back issues, either by buying trades, hardcovers, going to comic shops, using DC Infinite. There's so many different ways to get access to this content and be able to read backstories relating to this. I love that. What do you think about Markovia being now it's a nation that's been taken over by Leviathan?
Well, I love when they do stuff like that.
Yeah.
Black Adam did it. And it's a sovereign nation, and that right there is a really good thing to stop Superman. Because he won't do that. He won't cross that line. He won't. That's that country's nation, and he's not going to cross over unless you're sitting there and doing direct attack. He's not going to. That's why it's, Superman's got some great weaknesses. Not just the kryptonite's a minor thing. He works around that. His greatest weakness is if the innocent people are in danger, you've got a better shot. The other weakness he has is the fact that he does follow the law. And this is something he won't cross. And that's how they get him to lead. That's how, Superman came in, invaded, and I did air quotes around the term invaded because he's Superman. I don't think he truly invaded, but that's another story. But they got him to leave without firing a single shot. Why? Because it's, they're an independent nation. They have their own airspace. And I love how he's sitting there, how he opens up with that. Is like, we're a sovereign nation with our own independent airspace, which you're clearly right now violating. I thought that was absolutely beautiful. And again, it's a really neat story element and a really cool thing that's going to hopefully live on. This is one of those continuity things that can move on and develop into the next story. Maybe the next limited series is on Markovia. That could be, and it'll be, instead of calling it, either do a Leviathan story or do a story on Markovia or do something like that. There's so many different things they can do with this now. It's in the universe. It's out there.
I love that it's Geoforce's home. That is the one that's been taken over for this type of thing. I really I'm loving the way that they're utilizing all of this in the DC universe. Because you could have just made a different nation, a new nation for this. Now, take one that's a part of DC's rich history, and it means something for longtime fans. That was a really good choice as well. So, do you think there's any part of Mark Shaw that thought that he could really recruit Lois Lane? Because he does want Superman to get it. So, it's certainly a vehicle towards that, and it's a good attempt. I think that there was multiple layers to what he was doing. I think he was trying to recruit her, but I also think there was part of him that thought that he couldn't as well. What did you think? Did you think how serious was he in this pitch?
I think there's definitely strategery there. I don't know if he actually thought he would get Lois on board, but I think he knows that he needs Superman passive. And a great way to do that is to start. You talk to Lois and you pitch it. You pitch the idea to Lois, and then you pitch the idea to Superman, knowing the two of them are going to compare notes eventually. I think this was all part of this giant gambit where I don't think he thinks he'll get them on board, but I think he thinks that he could convince them not to do a full frontal assault. And I think that's what he's trying to avoid. He's trying to avoid Lois Lane and Superman coming at him. Now, because a combination of those two, it's a no-win. That's the Kobayashi Maru, man. You can't. Those two working in conjunction, 100% with a single goal of taking you down, you're in trouble. So what he needs to do is he needs to slow down Checkmate, slow down, the process. And I think all that was kind of like a gambit to, until he can get his end goal. And his end goal we see is, and I agree with Lois, that his end goal is this secret network, computer network between the Fortress, the Cave, and the Justice League.
Yeah.
The Hall of Justice. And I think that's his goal. Once he gets that, Superman can't touch him. Even Superman won't be able to because, and Lois says that, if he gets control of that, my husband can't stop him. Batman can't stop him. Checkmate can't stop him. He will be unstoppable if he can get a control of those things. So I think he didn't seriously think he would get them. And this was all kind of a ploy to slow them down. But again, it backfired because that game, did it backfire? Part of me thinks that he wanted Lois to realize what he's going after, and he wanted them to set a trap. I'm thinking this is all part of Shaw's giant plan to actually get control of it. He's going to use their attempt to use the Hall of Justice as bait to actually get access to the network.
Which is cool. I think the whole thing is just way cool. I love the idea that these are like the remaining supercomputers that are available. It's this network, this remaining network that they haven't really gotten a handle on, that has information that can be devastating if they've got control of it, is the Fortress of Solitude, the Hall of Justice, and the Batcave network that's linked. And you can see why that would be, thinking about the powers that are associated with that, why that would be a holdout you do not want them to get a hold of, because there's information contained by those three entities that nobody has, in many ways, nobody should have access to. You would argue that in some cases they have information they wish they didn't have access to. And I love that. They sometimes are the responsibility sometimes of being the gatekeepers to that level of information, that level of access, that level of, it points you to weapons, it points you to information that can potentially give you control over powers. When I say powers, I mean groups of people, aliens. There's so much insurmountable. I could go on and on. It really is a unique source. Information is power, and I love that that's something that we see nowadays. Ransomware and devastating. You know it in what you do as a career. I have it in what I do as a career. We're worried now about ransomware and people not only gaining access to your information, but shutting down your access to that information, taking away your ability to benefit from that information, and how it really can shut down what you do. Imagine what that would do to these heroes, who are basically, in many ways, the defenders of the planet, both internally and externally from threats. It's amazing what that could do, and how it would cause a power shift. If the world had to rely on Shaw and Leviathan as the only sole source of that kind of protection, that kind of information, it gives you an immense amount of power to guide the direction of the world, because you have to rely on him, whether you want to or not. You have to. I get the move. In a game of chess, it is a powerful move that he's trying to make right here. And having Talia involved, if Talia truly is on their side, who knows what Talia's up to here. I love that she's a wild card right now. Is she really with Leviathan? We're going to find out, as we go forward. Is she ultimately really with Checkmate? Is she ultimately really operating on her own, or is she really with Leviathan? 3 possible potentials there with her that make her this immense wild card. And does the king have any idea what's going on here? The king is an intriguing enigma right now for me.
Something popped in my head when
Sure.
we were talking about Markovia as to the identity of the king.
Sure.
What if it is the king? The former king of Markovia.
Geoforce?
Geoforce. Well, either Geoforce or Geoforce's dad. Now, Geoforce's dad is supposedly dead, but the Vic Sage was dead. So who knows? What if it's a Markovia connection?
I don't know. I'm not like even my tentativeness in my answer. I feel like it's going to be this interesting reveal. I don't know that that's not an interesting reveal. It's how it's delivered. I think that's going to make the decision as far as what it is. So I guess I don't really have an answer for you on that other than that could be intriguing depending on how it's delivered. I'm very anxious to see the delivery of who this is. What is because there's a reason for the secrecy. What is it? And I think that's the part where that's either going to feel very, very satisfying or it's going to fall flat, where my belief in Bendis is going to be that it's going to be very satisfying. I didn't see Mark Shaw coming. So I guess that's a thing. You didn't have a history with Mark Shaw when he was revealed in Event Leviathan.
Right.
So how did that feel to you as a reader? Like, was the reveal, and like, what did they give you enough that you cared about the reveal? Because it's a deep cut, Mark Shaw. Like, I know who Mark Shaw is, but even I didn't read like all of Mark Shaw's Manhunter series. I went back through after Event Leviathan and started reading some of that. But I'm familiar with him enough with crossovers and different stories that, I knew him through the years, but not from his own book. My first real read of Manhunter was the Kate Spencer book, because I just heard how great that was, and it is a tremendous read. But that would be more of my exposure to Mark Shaw was from that book versus Mark's own book even. And then later appearances by Mark Shaw and team-ups, I remembered them. For you, and I'm asking that genuinely, how did that reveal feel in Event Leviathan? Like, because here's my thing. If this is a deep cut, which it could be, its delivery is really critical on that, because you got to bring, and I'm not against that. I actually love the idea of deep cuts. I like the idea of digging into the history of the universe. Your delivery is critical in that, though, that you've got to make it accessible to your newer readers who are going to be like, huh, it's who now? and your people that like are going to go, oh, that's neat. There's got to be a balance between those two groups. Mark Shaw's reveal in Event Leviathan for me was, that's cool. But I knew who he was. Where were you at on that? Like, how did those kind of reveals work for you? Was it, because I can't speak to what that was like for you. Because did you know who he was when they revealed him?
See, for me, it was not a deep cut at all. I was like, I was with the team that says, who's that again?
Right.
I had to do some Googling, to verify who this guy was and this and that. And again, but they crafted the story well enough that I enjoyed it. To me, he's just he became another new character that I have to learn about and got to see what he did. And I was basing my experience on the story that was told, not the past.
So was it sad? So I guess what
it was a solid story, so I enjoyed it, but it didn't have a deep emotional ramification. Like you think back when we first see Jor-El, when they did that whole in the Superman story,
yep,
where Jor-El came back, that had a deep impact because I knew exactly who Jor-El was. If this had been Thomas Wayne, that would have been a huge cut for me because I know who Thomas Wayne is. I didn't really know who this guy was. I didn't know who Mark Shaw was, so it didn't have a deep cut, but it still was a cool story, and the whole Event Leviathan story was still kind of cool.
So my question, where I'm really going with that is, was that satisfying then, I guess? I loved your explanation. Was that still satisfying for you? Because for me it was, because I got the deep cut. It was like, so was it for you?
Oh, yeah. I'll tell you, the story is good. The story was good. Mm-hmm. So that's the whole thing. Again, the fact that it was Mark Shaw didn't add to the story. What added to the story was what they were doing with the character, who this guy was, what he did, how he did it, how it played out. So for me, that was like kind of my introduction to this guy, and he's a great character. And I love how he was written, and I'm loving how he's still written here. He's a great, air quotes around the term villain. Because, again, it's in the spy game, it is hard to say who the true villain is, and it's I like that we have that whole play. Especially, you think back to Event Leviathan, where it looked like they were just butchering people, and turns out, no, they were teleporting them, and people weren't actually dying. Some were dying, but not everybody was. And it was like kind of that dance as to who dies, who lives, who lives, who dies, who tells your story, if I can steal from Hamilton. But, it's that I think was one of the neat parts of the Event Leviathan. That's one of the neat parts of the Checkmate story. There's some really cool ways to dance around. These are new or lesser used characters. That there's a lot of people out there who don't have this deep impact with Vic Sage or with Bones or any or Manhunter for that matter. And we're seeing these characters at their height. We're seeing these characters being used very well.
Yeah.
So the fact that I don't have a emotional luggage, with this guy didn't matter. I was getting an emotional connection to him through the current story. So, so I'm all in on this guy. And as I said, I did some Googling on him, and I was looking up some stuff, and, the fact that the character was done so well made me want to see more about him.
That's awesome, because I think that's really critical. I like the balance of sometimes going with a deep cut where you're like pulling in some characters that you're like, people aren't going to expect it's going to be this character, but there's a history there and a reason why that character makes sense. I also like we're going to talk soon about Detective Comics, where we've got new characters like Vile that have been created, and I think it's nice to have a balance of that, right? Adding to the mythos. In both cases, you're adding to the mythos, where you're like in this case, you've increased the story of Mark Shaw, right, and taken him in a new direction to make him relevant again to the DC universe in a way that you could have crafted a new villain for that, but I don't know that it would have been as satisfying as when you've got like a deep cut that just kind of makes sense there. But yet, Vile, it serves itself by being a new character. You know what I mean? So I think it's nice when people are playing with the toys, adding new things, adding new elements to characters that already exist. This kind of stuff I'm really loving. We got really 2 books this episode that were very, very satisfying reads that all, in both cases, add something to the universe that can be tapped into later that we want more of. Like, I really feel that that's the commonality between the 2 titles that we're talking about is that it's people playing with the universe and adding something new to it. And I'm really excited about that. Anything else? Go ahead.
Well, question for you. Mm-hmm. Okay, so the sniper that's watching them take Talia out.
Yeah.
Who is that? Do you know?
Yeah. I don't.
Okay.
And I want to know. That's it. I'm glad you mentioned that, because I was just going to say, is there anything else we haven't hit on that? I love seeing Winslow shot and his usage. The sniper, I don't know. So the king, actually, the identities I want to know are the king and the sniper, because the sniper's following Talia. Why? I guess Talia's looking at the sniper.
Yeah, so Talia knows the sniper's there. Now, partially because she's Talia, but partially because, I don't know. Again, is the sniper Leviathan? Is the sniper Checkmate? Is the sniper League of Assassins? I don't know. There's so many different things of who this person could be, and that's one of the neat things when you get the espionage story. When you get these cool spy stories, you get these moments. And that's one of the things I like about a good spy story.
Right, is exactly what's dry. I want to know more. This has really, really been a very satisfying read, and I can't wait to see where this story goes moving forward. Checkmate is a winner. Want to talk Detective Comics?
Yes.
Can Batman escape? One hint, the worst is yet to come.
Our next discussion is going to be of Detective Comics number 1042. The writer is Mariko Tamaki. The pencils are by Victor Bogdanovic. Daniel Henriques and Victor Bogdanovic on inks. Jordi Belair on colors. Aditya Bidikar on letters. It's Iditya, and apologies for any name butchery there. Dan Mora on the cover, Lee Bermeo on the variant cover, Dave Wielgoes, associate editor, Paul Kaminsky editor, Ben Abernathy group editor, Batman created by Bob Kane with Bill Finger. The co-feature in the back, What is Task Force Z, Part 2, Matthew Rosenberg is the writer, Max Rayner on art, Diego Rodriguez on colors, Rob Lay on letters, Dave Wielgoes, the associate editor, Paul Kaminsky editor, Ben Abernathy, the group editor. And apologies for any name butchery in any of that. You know, it's funny, on the show, I think because Batman, the main Batman title, has been for the past few years like the premier Batman book, like I want to say premiere, all of the events seem to have been, that's been the central hub. A lot of times we haven't given as much lip service to Detective Comics. And I really want to apologize for any name butchery because I did play a little catch-up ball with Detective Comics, which I try to stay up to date with Batman books first because Batman's my jam. I love the Batman character. But Detective is the one, if I'm putting one of the books on the back burner, it winds up being Detective just because of time. You know, if we're focused on a different title, I will stay up to date on the main Batman book and jump back to Detective and binge read it, always loving it. So it's not a statement of quality. This Detective run is phenomenal. I love this book. I love that it's got its own story arc going on. I love the team up with Huntress, because Huntress is one of my favorites, and it's great to see her in this. I've really, really enjoyed this run, and this Vile, this character of Vile, you know, the whole mystery story going on and how he's got a mob guy after him, and in both his role as Bruce Wayne and in his role as Batman, and showing the real limitations that Batman has now that he's not filthy rich like he was. Like he's significantly more wealthy than you and I, but he does not have I can just blow it on an exploded car kind of money anymore. Where, you know, that there is a limit to what Bruce is able to pull off now. I'm loving the story. And even the Batsuit, the fact that we had to go back to an old, you know, the old blue Batsuit because of the fact that he didn't have one readily available. I love the whole framing of this storyline. The writing is really, really great on this. And it's the nice part about this is one of the things that came up last episode is, are there too many Bat books? Well, when you read this, it's no, this is a very different sort of book than Batman. And I love the differences. I'm enjoying immensely what's going on in Batman. This is a very different feel in the story, yet feels like it's part of the same universe. And that's what you want. I want that. This is why is this book valid? Because of the kind of storytelling it's delivering in this. And for me, it was a binge read. I had to go back and get caught up in order to do this episode. And I deliberately wanted to talk Detective Comics because I knew I needed to get caught up, and I wanted to do this book some service and really talk about how does this feel in comparison to the main Bat book. And I feel weird saying the main Bat book because now that I've read this, I'm like, I don't know, pretty much neck and neck for me. I mean, these are great, great titles. And I didn't realize that this is going to then jump right into Fear State, which it's going to. But what a satisfying story this is. Are you in this? What place are you in with Detective? Where does Detective Comics fall in your reading? How does that work for you?
Well, I had to binge as well. I had to do a little binge reading, as well. But again, everything you were saying, I'm going to echo along with it, where it's, sometimes it does get put on the back burner just because of life and time and whatnot. But I absolutely love this story. And it's weird because it was a fun read going through a couple issues of this Vile guy. Oh, yeah. And he's, as you said, he's just a great villain. And it's a nice addition, nice expansion of the universe. And everything you said about Huntress was yes, yes, yes. Give me more Huntress. She's a great character. And the usage of her in this story was awesome. I think that's one of the strengths of the Bat universe right now is that you can take one of the Bat family, or even not even is Huntress a Bat family? I don't know. You know, she and Oracle are cool, so she's kind of like the friend of the daughter, so that's kind of family. But she's never really a Bat. And I think, but she fits in Gotham. She fits in the Bat family. She fits in this universe. So you take that kind of character and use her in the Bat title. You know, and it wasn't just an Oracle story. We had a really cool Oracle story playing out. We had a Bat story as well playing out. I thought that was a really neat dance that that they did on this, because you don't want to just have Batman dealing with violence. We needed the whole family dealing with this. We needed the other parts playing into it. I think that was the strength of this story, that showing again, yeah, Batman doesn't have all his resources, but in a way he has more resources now.
Yes.
This Batman has a bigger team. This Batman is willing to work with the team, you know, as opposed to the lone knight doing it by myself. Well, no, he's got the family now.
He trusted Oracle. Like, he went and got himself locked up and trusted Oracle to clear the name of Bruce Wayne. I mean, that was a really cool moment in this series where, you know, it's like, listen, I need you to give the police all of the pieces they need so that way I get cleared. Because he knew, wait, if Oracle didn't do that, he'd still be sitting in prison. So, because of the fact that they're stretched so thin. So he really had to rely on her to put all this together, to make sure that the opportunity for him to get out of prison happened, because he couldn't have police after him, police after Bruce Wayne, and then Worth after him, Worth after Bruce Wayne. Still had to deal with Worth, because Worth at this point, there is the grieving father who is angry about the death of his daughter and wants revenge and wants justice. But there's also the irrational grieving father who at a certain point in time, I don't know that he necessarily, on the interior, he's so grief-driven and so angry over the loss of power that he wants to make a statement. The statement now has become overshadowing the truth. Like, it doesn't matter what the truth here is for him. He will stomp out anyone and anything that's remotely connected to it. So he kills Bruce Wayne and finds out Bruce Wayne wasn't the real killer. He will stalk down the killer, kill the killer. Or if somebody hints at the fact that 3 other people were part of the killing, he will stomp them down too, because he is angry that somebody has taken that control of his life, has killed someone so close to him. It's a statement of his reputation. It's a statement of his power. And he's an interesting, complex character because of that, because he's really irrational. Fear and losing, like, you will fear me, you will respect me, like, he's one of those guys. He will keep doing everything he can to maintain that power in a world. Gotham is very, very hard to maintain that in. The power shifts happen all the time. Cobblepot, as a puppet master in all this, is brilliantly written, because he uses Worth and Vile and the whole situation to his advantage to take control of Batman, and in ways that, like, if we can kill Batman, we can control Batman, we can do all of these things. Penguin in this is a home run hit, because he's surrounded by all of these catalysts that he can play around with, including Vile, who Vile is adding a horror and creep factor to this story. I'm always one, you start screwing with my head, that's, to me, terrifying. You start screwing with my head using, like, a jellyfish-like thing that goes in my body, you got me at creepy. I mean, that is, like, a different level of creepy. And seeing Batman, like, facing this hunger, we've seen Batman face this kind of thing before, but it's a battle between a creature that's inside him that's taking him over and who he is. It's not that he has full control. It's that he has enough control to influence outcomes. So I love seeing that battle where we know Bruce is not 100%, and he's not going to be 100% while that jellyfish is inside him. But yet you see the internal battle and the struggle, and that's compelling to me. And the fact that it was told over these multiple issues in this story, it was something that was really, really well crafted. I love the pacing. This is a book that really has a unique pacing and is a great partner title. I'm not going to say, I don't want to make it in any way, shape, or form diminish it. I really feel after getting caught up on this run, I'm like, boy, Batman and Detective Comics are running neck and neck for me on the quality right now. And what I love is the different sort of thing I get from binge reading this. I'm fine. I don't care if I get behind on books when binge reading catches me up and I feel like this at the end. The binge reading of this was great. I love the co-features and how they add something to the main story. Really well-crafted co-features that go along with this that I found were really satisfying as well. The idea that we got this reporter that's also a part of this story, and Vicky Vale, and how they're both competing for, like, they work together but then don't work together. They're rivals, and yet there is a level of professional courtesy in there as well. It was such a unique situation that was going on there. I love that ongoing story. It's a really well crafted book.
Oh God, yeah, and I'll tell you, and I got 100% agree with you on Penguin. They're just doing a brilliant job with him. This is the kind of usage of Penguin. He's not physical. He's not the physical. He's the psychological. He's the intellectual battle. He's a mob boss. He's not the guy who goes around beating people up. He orchestrates, somebody else doing the damage. He 100% is playing Worth beautifully, I might add, and he's even trying to play Batman. I like the fact that you've got Batman kind of down, but instead of saying, no, we're not going to put a bullet in him, we're going to drop him in the middle of Gotham so that way he goes nuts, killing people, completely ruining the name of the Bat. He wants to destroy the Bat. Not physically, but the actual icon, because, Batman is more than just a person. Batman is this ideology, this belief. He wants to destroy that. And I love the fact that was Penguin's plan throughout this. Now, granted, it doesn't exactly work how Penguin wants it. And the second Penguin realizes this is not going to go my way, what's he do? He's like, I'm out of here. And again, completely fit Penguin was beautiful usage of him to recognize the fact that, okay, I am now in a situation where I need to leave. Ciao.
The fight between Batman and Worth was so creepy because you've got this entity, this creature clearly oozing out of Batman. The green eyes, this just real creep factor. This is something, I gotta say, I love Batman statues. I'd love a statue of this. Just because I've got so many unique Batman black and white statues now, this could lend itself to be another one of those because it's such the vile concept to me is just so deliciously creepy. And when Batman goes here, Batman works really well as a horror comic when it needs to. And this story is very much because you got Worth panicking on the phone. Someone answer. Yet he's still trying to hold together this power that has been his defense mechanism. Stop right there. You hear me? Whatever you are, I am still a man to fear. And you see him there clearly, you think a monster puts ice in my veins? Think again, Bat. And, he's pulling out the gun in defiance. Of course, when it clicks and there's no bullet, I thought the bullet was going to go off, and because of the vile power that, that wouldn't affect Batman. Nope. I love the ending even better, where there's the fight, and Batman's won because of not just his skill, but the power. I really, really loved the way that this all played out because he lets him go based on the creature's control, but Batman throws out the line, so that way it wasn't the killing blow. It, clearly Worth got hurt from that, but it was not the killing blow. That was something that I really enjoyed in that sequence, was seeing that dichotomy in that fight was way cool.
Well, again, Bruce fighting throughout this the entire time. I love that, how you've got, Vile saying, kill him now. And then you got the bad icon. No. I thought that was a really cool, again, throughout this. And then later on, he's like, kill her, kill the hunter. It must be her, kill her. No, click. And he cuffs himself. Bruce is able to fight through the control. Now, he couldn't completely stop it, but he's able to do a little bit more. What normal person couldn't do, the Bat can, because he's the Bat. And I think that for me is some of the neat stuff in a cool Batman story. Where the running joke is always, hey, with a couple $1 billion, I could become Batman. No, you couldn't, because there is an internal, just that gut check of him that will always push through.
So Huntress, and did you read the Huntress Secret Files issue?
Yes, actually, yeah.
Great issue. So, and I recommend that to anybody listening to this. If you read this detective story and didn't read the Huntress Secret File issue, it's Huntress focused, but it's totally like I don't want to say side story. It is a side chapter that is a part of this overarching story that really fleshes out more what you see from her in this, where we see her with the green eyes and the fact that because of the fact that she was infected by this, she is able to see who's been infected. And when we see her battling, I love the change up. Like every so often they do this with female characters, and I think it is very fitting, where you kind of modernize the look a little bit and tweak it up. And I like that it's classic Helena Bertinelli. We've shortened the hair a little bit, we've tweaked the outfit a little bit, but yet I love her look. I just think she's a really cool character. I always have, from when they did a Earth 1 version of her that was not Batman's daughter, right? And brought her into this person who's seeking revenge that was in a mob family, what would happen to her family. So it's nice to see this version get a little tweak and an update, and I'm hoping this is a sign we're going to continue to see more of her, because I like the interplay between them, and your explanation of her, she's part of the Bat family, but not part of the Bat family. I think it's because of the fact that in the past she has been a killer as part of her operation. I think now she skirts more of the line where she could be an agent of the Bat, but yet there's going to always be that question of, is she willing to truly be on board? And I really enjoyed that kind of exploration of her relationship with Bruce in this, because when you have a guest star in there that's part of the Batman universe, or the overall, this kind of DC universe, more the Birds of Prey portion of the this Batman universe, there's something fun about seeing that different relationship. She is different than if he was teamed up with the Signal or Nightwing or Batgirl herself. This relationship is unique, and her being in there added to the story for me, because I felt like there was an advancement of her character, while at the same time an advancement of their relationship, because they aren't at the end like necessarily warm and fuzzy, but yet there seems to be an understanding between them that I really enjoyed. Like, you get how they got there. Both of them understand what it's like to be possessed by Vile, and they both survived that event. And they're the only two people that understand that. So through that, there is a camaraderie that it's not family-like, like in the Batman family sense, like you're saying, but yet there is a growth in their relationship that makes it a very unique relationship to any other. I loved that. That's where I think it's quality writing, because it feels different. It feels unique. You could have done the cookie cutter thing and brought in any other member of the Bat family. The fact that you brought in Huntress and really embraced what it means to bring in Helena Bertinelli in this, that added to this story for me a great deal.
Oh God, yeah, and it's interesting, the ending, with them sitting there in the cemetery. It's weird seeing Bruce sometimes, where I want to give the guy a hug, because he has only pain and suffering in his life.
Yeah,
and that's some of the things that for me, that sequence just had, I don't know, it hit me, because you really do see just how lonely this guy is throughout all this. And we get some great dynamic between when they bring in Catwoman. And with him, he and Selena, when they have those great moments of where you can see him having actual joy in his life. But he and Helena, I think, I don't want to say a couple, but they could actually help each other, I think. I think she would be a really neat partner for him. You know how the old saying is Batman needs a Robin? Well, I think Huntress could be, for lack of better terms, a Robin. She could be that partner who could help him through not just the physical stuff, but just the mental and the emotional side of being the Bat.
Yeah.
And I think that's, I wish we could get more of these stories of these two together. Because, again, she is a part of the family, but she's not really a part of the family. And I'd like to see that shift down the line and actually have her be a full-fledged Bat. And like you, I like the costume, but how neat would it be if she had an actual Bat symbol on her outfit somewhere?
I don't know that I want that. I like the idea of the growing relationship and the evolving relationship, but I think what I like about her, it's really strange. I like that she's not, and I'm not saying you're wrong for your feelings. So this sounds like I'm contradicting you. Like, you're sharing an opinion, and it's perfectly valid. So please know that my intention here isn't like poking holes in your thought. I'm listening to what you're saying, and I'm like, I get it. I get why you're feeling that way, and there's validity to everything you just said. I think what I like so much is that she's not, and it maintains a unique relationship between them. I don't know that I want to see her fully cross over, if that makes sense. Like, I actually want to see, I would love to see a Birds of Prey revival. And because I just think it's one of DC's unique concepts. I think it's a book that has, when it's been understood and really done well, it tells a different kind of story with these characters. I think I like Helena's evolution. And I like that she's somebody that Batman can rely on. And I want to see her appear in the Bat books more. So I'm not necessarily battling what you're saying. But I don't know that, like, I want to see her have a bat symbol on or things like that. Because I like her, and this is right. No, not a right or wrong thing to it. It's just more of an opinion. I like that Huntress is a thing. Like, she's kind of her own little storm when she comes in. And I love that about her. And I don't know that I ever want her to have fully be under the Bat banner in that respect, just because we got a lot of people under that banner already. And I don't know that we need another one that way. She's more fun as being like this unique thing. Although I'll take a Bat symbol being plastered on her if we get to see more of her.
Yeah.
So I'm not, like, that's where I'm kind of like, well, I'm saying all that, but in truth, they plop a Bat symbol on her, and that means we're going to get a co-feature with her that's going to be ongoing. I'm like, oh, all right, fine, plop it on there. Like, I'll drink that Kool-Aid, and we'll go forward with it. But to me, what worked so well in this story and what I'm passionate about was how different their relationship is because she's not. And that's something that I think works really well.
And I completely agree with you on that. I'll tell you right now, I'm not, it's one of those things where I do like the fact that she's not a member of the family, that dynamic. Yeah. But it's when I look at stuff, when I think stuff like that, it's me thinking off page. It's me thinking, that Bruce is actually real. I'm thinking about my friend and I want to help him, because he really does need help. And I think that's, throughout every one of these adventures. And, you think back to what the Future State shows us happens to Gotham and happens to him. What's coming down the pipeline, the level of nastiness that's coming for him. He needs as many people around him as he can. And I think we're seeing kind of the team, that he needs around him forming up. And we see them working together. We're starting to see this, unit. So it's kind of neat that way. Again, going back to that whole Future State story that may or may not happen, we're seeing all the pieces fall into place that it's causing it to happen. We're seeing Bruce get beaten down physically, mentally, and emotionally. We're seeing the other members of the Bat family having to step up, basically. So it's kind of neat seeing this stuff lay out, knowing what could possibly be down the line. And I would love to see more of, Birds of Prey, series again. That I'd be all in on that, 100%. But just, Detective Comics being Huntress and Batman, continuing this dynamic would be wonderful.
Yeah, it's funny. I want to contradict myself, sort of, because when you're saying that, I'm like, well, yeah, I do want to see them team up again. I guess I want it to remain like this unique relationship. I don't want her to be labeled as a. I know you're not saying this. I guess I'm kind of more fleshing out what my thoughts are on it than you're bringing up an interesting concept that I think is intriguing and worth following. I like this idea of the two of them teaming up. I'm protective of the dynamic. I want more of them together. I think it's an interesting sort of relationship. I liked her relationship with Nightwing, when they did some crossovers with the two of them together. And I feel like Batman and her is something that they've explored before, but haven't gone as far as you can go with. I think there's more stories to tell, and this really showed that. It's very, very interesting to see what that relationship is and how it would evolve. I liken her more to Catwoman in the sense that I don't want to see Catwoman with a bat symbol on her, but there is a Batman family relationship to her, but yet she's not. She hasn't totally jumped on board, and I don't think she ever, even if they got married, that's why I think their marriage would be unique. I don't think she ever truly would. I like Lois Lane, right? Lois Lane doesn't need an S symbol on her chest. Lois Lane needs an LL on her chest because she's got kind of her unique kind of thing to her. Huntress is that same way. It's a fun character. I really do think we're a lot more aligned than I'm implying on this. I think it's an interesting sort of concept. I do want to see more of them. You and I and we're completely on the same page with that.
And it's funny, once you said the Catwoman thing, I'm like, I can see where you're coming from, because I agree with you. I would never want to see Catwoman have a bat symbol on her suit. I think it'd be a funny page spread if Bruce Osborn wanted. She's like, really? You think I'm going to have that on my outfit? I think that'd be a funny dynamic, but I would never want to see her with one on. I think it'd be funny moments where she has to put on a spare costume or something like that.
Yes.
That would be kind of a funny moment, with Selena. So I can see what you're saying with Huntress not having a symbol on her chest or on her, because I was thinking actually the belt buckle, because she's got that cool H, right there, which could very easily be morphed into a symbol. But I'll be honest, I can see what you're coming from, and I agree with you on that. I want, though, my main thing is I want another story where it's Batman and Huntress, and I'd love to see if the next issue after this, she was still rolling with him. And I think that'd be, again, they're a cool dynamic, because it's not a Batman Robin relationship, but there is a definite hierarchy. She would, listen to orders, because of, it's Batman. She's not going to say, I know more than Batman, but she's not going to just blindly do what he says. It's going to, she's going to bring something to the mix. And that's the cool dynamic these two would have. In this story, there's very little direct interaction between them. She was running a whole side story. He was running his story. And then at the end, they converged. I would love to get a story where right from the beginning, they're side by side.
Yeah. It's and I think there's... I want to see that kind of evolve, and I'd like to see that relationship evolve and see where it goes. I just want it to be unique. I think that the end result doesn't always need to be... I know you weren't going for this, so I think it's fun when the end result of a relationship evolving is she's more like his relationship with Aquaman than his relationship with Signal. And I kind of want to see that evolve. I liked at the end the kind of cliffhanger with the eggs.
The eggs.
Yeah, that this story was going to continue. I don't know if that's going to play into Fear State, or if that's going to be that's a wink and a nod that this can happen again in the future. I don't largely care. I ready for next issue and want to see where this story's, where this book's going to go in convergence with Fear State. I didn't know whether or not this book was going to cross over with Fear State. I've kind of stayed away from Fear State spoilers. Now the checklist is in this issue, and seeing that Detective is going to be a part of this, the scale of Fear State's huge.
Yeah, that's a monumental thing. It's funny. Whenever they give us these checklists, I'm very happy for them. And, I kind of take them and I've got them a separate little listing of it so I know what to go with. And, it's the eggs for me, that's a future. That's not a next issue or anything. I think that's just playing the pipework that Vile is not dead yet.
Yeah.
Vile's not dead. Vile's still out there because you can see the egg is rolling into the sewer. So the egg is getting out there, and the egg is going to survive, and it's going to find a new host, and it's going to start spreading, and it's going to, it ain't dead yet. And again, it's Gotham City, so who knows when they're going to pop up, but one day Vile is coming back.
I'm looking forward to this. I like this co-feature with Matthew Rosenberg and what was written here, about Task Force Z and Jason Todd. I am finding him to be one of my favorite guest characters in books. I loved him in his own series, but when he's in Urban Legends, when he's in here, and you're getting to see him interacting, there is something unique about Jason Todd. And so this is the Jason Todd that's trying to do things in like a different way, right? The one
this is the Urban Legend costume.
Yeah.
At the end of Urban Legends, he was given this costume. So this is Jason Todd 100% doing things differently. No guns, no nothing, none of that stuff. He's, doing it more badish, but still in his own little flair, his own style. But I'll tell you, this has been a really cool story because, again, I like the fact that we're getting Jason Todd stories because Bruce and Jason was another team up that I always wanted. That, I think, the Urban Legends story really showed these two could, work together. These two could be something together. When they introduced Ghostmaker, I thought, it's a cool character, but part of me wishes that the role that Ghostmaker was filling would have been Jason. But at the time, now I think they're starting to get there. But when they introduced Ghostmaker, Bruce and Jason weren't in that place. So it's one of those, again, he's a character that I want more of. These co-features are wonderful. I'd love to see them side by side with the Bat because that was a great story in Urban. And I'm happy we're getting stories. I'm happy we're getting well-written stories that fit Jason.
Yeah. That's a good way to put it because I also like this Deb character. I like her as a reporter. One of the things we talk about Gotham Central, one of the things I loved about that series was it wasn't just that it was a police procedural set in the Batman world. It was the idea that it was this supporting cast of the Batman universe. It fleshes it out. Same way that I love the exploration of the Daily Planet, I love the idea of, let's talk about some of the reporters that are in Gotham. This is, and the challenges of being a reporter today. It doesn't generate the same kind of money that it used to. She talks in part of this co-feature about how there was all the promises of being a reporter, right, and what that was supposed to be. And I love that all those promises were framed by the reality of what being a reporter is. And I thought there was just some great writing because it just added this sense of this is what it's like today. Things have changed today. We went into the mall, or my wife went in the mall, I should say, and did some shopping, and we were talking afterwards, and I pop by Great Lakes Mall every so often near us, but two major satellite stores are gone now. And some of the stores that my wife likes, she was frustrated that they're gone now. As you talk about the changing times, I still like them all. There's been some new entertainment things that have gone in. There's a museum that's in there now, and I just hope the facility remains. I hope there's a way to change it up and revitalize it because there's a comic shop in there and there's, other things. There's a lot of other stores in there. I still like malls, but they're becoming, in the day and age where they're competing with the amount of savings you can get and the convenience of not just the internet, but being able to drop up to stores now and do this kind of walk out and they give you stuff. There's less and less reason to go inside to places because you can do the store pickup, which I think is you have to compete. So as we see that change, you take a look at how media is. I mean, magazines now, I have a couple of magazines that I still get, physical magazines. I love paper, but I'm found that now my paper is a lot more focused on unique collected editions, unique sized collected editions with extras. I love the extras in collected editions and being able to have those on the shelf because they look sharp. I love absolute editions. I love omnibuses. And that's become a lot more of my collecting now than the monthly singles, where I tend to prefer a lot of those digitally. So I still buy as much paper each month as I did before, but it's shifted to a different kind of purchase of paper. And along with that, I'll buy things like statues and figures and swag and things that go along with that. T-shirts and all, like you've referenced them on the show, like how our sponsor DCB Service has all those things, and I'm really not doing this as a cheap plug for them. It's important to talk about how has my collecting shifted, because I think it matches the theme of what Deb's talking about, how her whole world has changed. I collect Doctor Who magazine. I do that through Pocket Mags now on my iPad. I'm still getting every issue, but I love that they're on my iPad along with some of my comics on there. And it's nice that I can go everywhere and take that with me, and I've got all of my magazines with me instead of before. I grew up taking folders with me with comics in the pockets, so that way they were protected by something else if I tossed them into a bag. Well, now I've got them digitally on this, or I'm taking a collected edition with me, where I've got, like, I'm reading a Sandman Absolute or something like that. Those ones that I want to read over and over again that have the nice little ribbon that goes through that I can use as a bookmark. And, I love that kind of stuff. So I still love paper. It's just the paper I love is different. It's a different sort of collecting. Her world's different because of that. We get the paper here. My wife likes the paper version of the paper. I like reading it on my iPad. I get that as part of our subscription. So I find now that I flip into the Cleveland Plain Dealer through my iPad now. Just because that's a delivery method I like. My wife has not made that transition. She prefers the paper copy of the paper. Great. Nothing wrong with that. But I think you've got now this divided audience where they've had to modernize with the times, and they've got this digital version now that's also available. So it's an interesting sort of time. I loved her commentary on how her world has changed. And it's a lot harder for a reporter now to make the kind of money that they did before, because newspapers compete now with the internet in general. So you're not getting the kind of audience. Papers are thinner now. The stories, the big stories, are not the financial draw that they used to be. They more keep you surviving. They keep you in the game. I loved that commentary. It felt so real and so natural. And she's still talented. She's still doing what she's doing. But she and Vicky are really competing. It's not just for the big headlines. It's for survival. And I love that. It's so contemporary in the storytelling.
Well, investigative journalism itself is going away. It's now just the what's out on the wire, media, blitz. It's the there's no one really diving deep, going behind the scenes. There's still, I'm not going to say they don't exist at all, but there's a lot less of them out there. For example, one street over, a house caught on fire. And part of the house was damaged, pretty much big time. They had to replace the roof and all this stuff, and it appears nobody got hurt, so that's kind of, good news. But in the old days, there would have been stories about that one simple house fire. Nowadays, it's not anywhere. I couldn't find it anywhere about what happened to that house, because it's not a big major story. It's not a big major thing, but back in the day, this would have been something. Even if it would have been a small blip somewhere, it would have still registered. It still would have been out there. Right now, the media that's out there is focusing on the big news, focusing on the big events, but the smaller local news does not happen anymore, does not get reported. And that's something that you're seeing with this. And I like how, you commented on how she has that where she's talking about coming up a journalist. They tell you it's going to be great. Yeah, they don't tell you about the dangerous men breaking in your homes. They tell you how rewarding and fun it is and all sorts of people you're going to talk to. You see him dealing with the disgruntled security guard, and you get to travel, and she's still in her office working long hours and this and that. And it's, the realism behind it. If you want to make it, you've got to do this nasty work. And even that, it's still not making it. She's still barely surviving. So it's kind of a neat thing that this story is talking about. One, it's a cool Jason Todd story, but they didn't let Jason be the main focus. She was the main focus of the story. She's been one of the primary focuses on this story. So I think that, again, we're getting a brand new character, because I don't remember ever seeing her before all of this stuff started playing out. But I've already got a solid lock on Deb, and I like her, and I want more stories with Deb in it. So this Task Force Z, wherever this goes, I want to see more of that, where she plays out in it.
Deb, you learn about her ethics at the very end. I love this last page. Every good reporter hits a point in their career where they have to make a decision. Do they chase the story or risk seeing people get hurt? Do they intervene and risk losing the story? I don't want to lose this story, but I also don't want to watch a murder. She's calling the police. So Deb Donovan's calling the police, gets smacked in the back of the head. I loved watching that. I want to know who did it. I want to know where this is going to go from here. The to be continued, I'm like, I can't wait till next issue. That's how you pull people in. You make me care about the character. I'm like, I want to read next issue to find out what happened to Deb. Is she okay? What happened with her? Because I really dig her.
Yeah, who was it that dropped her? And that's the thing. And it's funny because the panel before that, where she's talking about it, Jason's holding his own. It's Jason. He can take these 4 thugs. But granted, they're pretty heavily armed. They're pretty packed, and this is going to be an interesting fight for it. Especially this is the Jason Todd who's not going in guns blazing. This is Jason Todd who's physically beating people up and using, he's got the crowbar, which I still do like the fact that he uses the crowbar. But it is interesting seeing this play out, And again, these are people, they're stealing dead bodies, And Task Force Z, of course, means it's got to be a zombie kind of thing, or I'm assuming. Because does the dead stay dead? Do they have to stay dead? I don't know. We're going to find out. And I think, again, adding everything that's happened in Gotham, a zombie apocalypse fits. It 100% fits that city.
Yep, absolutely. What a terrific book. I mean, I just really loved this book. I loved that both the main feature and the co-feature, I think, really just delivered a very unique experience. And it was kind of poetic because we didn't realize we had already booked talking about Detective Comics before we had the conversation on last episode about are there too many Bat books. When you read like this, kind of like, no. If you're gonna, I think that's the key, though, isn't it? It becomes too many when there's not an identity, a reason, where you don't sit there and go, okay, there's a validity in the fact that this book has a different feel. When it doesn't, like, you can read Batman, you can read this, you can read Batman Catwoman and go 3 very unique stories. When you can't do that and you're like, oh man, this book feels like a filler. There's not that kind of quality that you go, wow, that was satisfying at the end. That's when there's too many. And that's happened before with books. Not just Batman, I think across comics. When do people say there's too many X books, for example? When it's what is the identity of the book, and that's when they pare back or rework the books or rebrand or retitle them, and I think that's perfectly valid to do. I think as companies they need to do that periodically. Why did Shadow of the Bat run its course? I loved that book, but that was a title that had a time where it had an identity and had a direction. As the character evolved, as storytelling evolved, as the need from Batman books evolved, that book no longer existed. Legends of Dark Knight was the same thing. One of my favorite all-time Batman books, I'm talking about the real lengthy run of Legends of Dark Knight, And we just had a revival recently of Legends of the Dark Knight. I think that book ran its course, but it was this idea of these stories that could be in or out of continuity, and great creators could just tell great Batman stories. I loved that book for what it did, and its first year in particular, if you take a look at it, was some high literature. In the stories that they were delivering, they were like really hitting it out of the park. I'm not saying that later runs didn't. Don't get me wrong. I'm not knocking anything afterwards, but when that first came out, it felt different. It felt like, wow, that's what this book's going to be. And then I think in subsequent years, you just kind of used to, that's what Legends of the Dark Knight is, if that makes any sense. Like, you've already kind of got it. So your expectation on that's what that book's going to deliver. I think what makes comics valid and why with favorite characters you can add additional titles on. First of all, let's be honest, casual readers are drawn to characters that they can identify. There is an audience that's more likely to go into a comic shop and grab a Batman book than they are some of the unique characters of DC. Sales numbers show that. I love the fact that the company still tries, and Marvel does this too. Independent companies try this too. I hate to use the term independent companies because that even in of itself has different categories within it, subcategories. But I think you got to keep trying new things and putting out new concepts on top of always going to some of the well-known characters, because that adds to a diverse product line. But you can't help but say they got to make money still, and what they know that makes money is quality books with well-known characters. So there's a balance. I think it's a weird juggling act. I would not want to run a comic company because of the fact that I think those are really tough decisions to make when you're looking at a combination between artistry and a financial bottom line. You have to consider both. And it's good stuff. This was a great book. We do not give enough time to Detective Comics, and I'm glad we did.
Holy caffeine!
I would like to remind everyone about our show voicemail line. It's 1-440-388-4434 or drnorge on Skype. RagingBullets@gmail.com is our email address if you want to email us directly that way. 2 great ways to contact us if you want to be part of the show in any capacity. RagingBullets.com is our show website. That's where you're going to find news and updates about brand new episode releases. That does feed into Twitter. It also feeds into our Facebook fan page. We are also proud to be a part of this amazing Facebook group community, and I constantly go there to check out not only news, but commentary, links to blogs, links to other podcasts. Please consider that if you join it, to be a great source to just share geeky comic culture and information. The people that are there and the people that have been running it, it really is their playground. We're proud to be associated with it under the Raging Bullets banner, but it really is the people that are running it. It's their playground. We are just proud to be partners and associated with it. Thank you to everyone who participates there regularly, because it is every day, it's my go-to destination to just kind of read what people are talking about and links to just various things. People spend a lot of quality time putting things together to make it easy to find what's out there, and I really just appreciate being a part of that. The About Us section of the show website is where you can find links to how to get to us on all of social media. You can also get to us on gaming platforms, so it's a great way to connect with us. We love connecting with you. Sponsoring us this episode is, of course, DCB Service and InStockTrades.com. Jim, what is going on over at DCBService.com?
DCBS Service is not just about comics. Yeah, they get great deals, but there's action figures, statues, T-shirts, apparel, and whatnot. So please check them out, spend a little time, do some shopping, and thank you, DCBS.
Remember to check out over at InStockTrades.com things like compendiums. The Fables Compendium Volume 3 I mentioned earlier with a lot of love. I adore this book, and if you have not had a chance to read Fables, grabbing the compendiums from InStockTrades.com is a great way to enjoy it. This is a $59.99 book, 1,096 pages, 42% off, only $34.79. I mean, that is a lot of content for a very low price point. So I want to thank DCB Service and InStockTrades.com for continuing to support the show. Mr. Segulin, our next episode, we are going to be doing a midweek bonus show, pop culture and whatnot, we're joined by comic book creator Winston Gabbro to talk about some of his work. So that'll be a nice bonus show, and then we'll be back next weekend with a regular DC release. We will see you then.
Bye!
All right, you guys. Are you ready to sing your song?
I'd say we are. Yeah, let's sing it now.
Okay, this should be fun. Now get ready for your cue. Okay, Sean?
Okay.
Okay, Jim? Jim? Jim!
Okay. Raging Bullets time is here. We talk about what we hold dear. Comic books and TV shows. Superheroes and their clothes. Justice League and so much more. I just love Green Lantern Corps. We talk about the books we've read with spoilers straight ahead.
Okay, fellas, get ready. That was very good, Sean.
Naturally.
Jim, you're a little flat there, so be careful. Jim? Jim? Jim!
Okay. Justice League and so much more. I still love Green Lantern Corps. DC Comics are what we know. The Raging Bullet Show. DC Comics are what we know. The Raging Bullet Show.
Excellent job, guys.
Let's sing it again. Yeah, let's sing it again.
No, that's enough. Let's not push it.
Push it. What is that? Yeah, what are you talking about?
No, I didn't
What
mean
are you
anything
trying
by
to say?
that.
I think
Sean,
you're doing it right
Jim,
now. I don't know
how long do you want the song to go?
Look, it's on